Alright, everybody, and welcome back. Alright, everybody, and welcome back. I mean to say, it's CS Nazo, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney live streams. In the last part, we had a lot of bullshit to deal with that I'm still a little upset about. And hopefully that is not, the standard for the rest of the game, because I'm sorry, I'm still gonna say it. That was kind of bullshit. But in this part, we're probably not going to be going into a trial at all for this entire case. It's probably just going to be entirely investigation, like the last game was. So yeah, the Memoirs of Clouded Kokoro. Oh. Is there going to be a cutscene? Yep.
It was a ghastly tale of a winter's night. One of an invisible killer and a crime perpetrated on the pavement along Briar Road. As the victim lay at death's door, the mystery of just who had stabbed the young lady from behind had been resolved. But no sooner had my friend saved that Eastern Exchange student from his harrowing plight, then in the dim, flickering shadows of gaslight did a second bizarre crime rend the stillness of that very night. I dare say most can still recall the sensational headlines of the day. Haunted apartment of death, the condemned criminal's curse, the dread demon of coal gas. Yet, though the great detective had at once discerned the truth upon his arrival at the scene, it only proved to be the overture that announced the rising of the curtain on a most tragic play.
So this happened the same night. The same night. And we're only just now learning about it. What is VarkTech? My name is Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I'm a fledgling lawyer just starting out on my journey. 6 months ago, I arrived as a visiting student of law. Having made the long voyage across the sea from the Empire of Japan to here, London, England, and on the way, in quite extraordinary circumstances, I made the acquaintance of a world-famous detective. Currently, I reside in the attic of the detective's own lodgings, from where I run my legal consultancy of sorts. I've successfully defended a number of clients in Britain's highest court, the Old Bailey. But since a particularly grueling and unforgettable legal battle 4 months ago now, I haven't returned to the courtroom. In truth, I've lost my right to return. But that epic trial was just one small part of an epic tale, a tale which was now about to awaken from slumber, thanks to a letter that arrived this morning from my homeland. What a delicious smell wafting up the stairs. It must be nearly time for breakfast. I better go down to Mr. Sholm's suite and say good morning to the great detective and his flatmate. "30th of August, 7:28 a.m., Sholm Suite." Ah, Runo, good! I was just about to call up to you. The bacon's ready. Good morning, Iris. It's most delicious as usual. Before we eat, though, I have some news. I had a surprise this morning. Oh, right, I forgot about this. 1 second. I completely forgot to do this. Great Ace Attorney 2 has alternate costumes that you can wear. And I actually turned the one for Susato off because she was already in a different than normal outfit. So I'm going to go back and turn that on. Let's see. There it is. There we go. Not another word, Mr. Naruhodo! This could be just the abstruse thing for my pre-breakfast stagnation-repelling mental stimulation, my dear fellow! Morning to you too, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, yes, I see. So that's it. 6 feet, sir. The truth is as clear to me as day. My faculties of observation have revealed it yet again. What are you talking about? You, Mr. Naruhodo, you have, this very morning, met with a surprise! Well, is that not the case? Really, my dear fellow, it barely warrants explanation. Firstly, your hair is particularly unkempt, somewhat reminiscent of a bird's nest. Secondly, you have neglected to fasten the 3rd button of your jacket. Clearly, when considered together, these 2 facts point to you having been flustered this morning. Can I talk now? But of course! Though I don't look for admiration, you understand. My hair always looks like this. It's been this way since I first met you. Oh, has it? And the button was ripped off last night, if you remember. By you. Hurley pulled your button off? Ah, yes, I recall the incident now. It was after supper, was it not? As the evening advanced, I picked up my violin and began to play the wailing notes of a haunting tune. But then, to my utter dismay, the 3rd string snapped! Why did it have to happen? Why? Little wonder, then, that in my vexation, I grabbed the first button I saw and ripped it from its proper place. Well, I'd like it back now, please. It's troubling me that I can't fasten my jacket. And it's troubling me that you expect me to know where it is. Somewhere thereabouts on the floor, one presumes. Helpful. What matters at the present time, my dear fellow, is simply whether or not my deduction was, unerring. But Hurley, Runo said it when he came in, didn't he? I had a surprise this morning. Well, that really is a surprise. Yes, this man is the pride of the British Empire, the famous consulting detective Mr. Herlock Sholmes. There can't be a single person in the world who doesn't know his name. Alright then, enough of this silly conversation. Come and eat this bacon before it goes cold. And I have a new herbal tea for you to try too, my latest special blend. And here we have Iris Wilson, Mr. Sholmes' lodger and companion. A truly exceptional young girl who's the author of a highly successful serialization here in London. Yes, The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, as published in Rance magazine. So, Mr. Naruhodo, won't you put us out of our misery? What surprised you this fine morning? Ah, well, I received a letter from Japan. Oh, from Susie, you mean? What, was it? Really? That's right, I wish I could talk. She had some rather startling news, in fact. Ah, intriguing indeed. You must tell us about, all about it over breakfast. Oh yes, what fun! And converse. Miss Susato's letter. This is the letter that arrived from Japan this morning, by international post. Actually, is that in the court record? It is not in the court record. Oh, how lovely! Look at Susie's beautiful writing. I wish I could read it. And how is your judicial assistant faring, may I ask? She's very well, thank you. In fact, according to what she's written, she's actually appeared as a lawyer at the Japanese Supreme Court and won a case. Yep, we did that in the last stream. Oh, really? Oh, isn't she wonderful? A cut above your good self, my dear fellow. I've won cases too, you know. Apparently, Mr. Natsume appeared in the trial as a witness. Natsume. No, I don't recall that name. Of course you do! We helped the man! Twice! You know, in those 2 cases that took place on Briar Road 6 months ago? 2 cases. They keep talking about another case on Briar Road. Ah, the mustache-twitchy man with the somewhat feline eyes and the mustache. He didn't have two mustaches, Hurley. Ah, yes, who can forget those two cases? They made a very deep impression on me, and that happened the same night. Although I must confess, the details are a little hazy now. A very deep impression they made on you, clearly. Startling news. So, what was the startling news penned by Mr. Sato? Do you remember the case of the haunted lodgings, Mr. Sholmes? Ah, yes, it's very interesting, you know? I don't feel entirely uncertain that a case of that nature did not occur. He's totally forgotten then. Anyway, in her letter, Mr. Sato asked that we read over her case notes again and investigate further. Though it took place half a year ago. For what purpose? Because of something that Mr. Natsume said to her, apparently. He suggested that the real reason why she was called back to Japan so suddenly might have something to do with that case of the haunted lodgings. Oh? On Mr. Natsume's return to Japan, Mr. Sato's father questioned him about the case, she says. And something Mr. Natsume said appeared to trouble Professor Mikotoba, prompting him to send that telegram. Oh, that case! Yes! I'm very confused. I only remember the one case. It was very strange, wasn't it? Yes. And I had compiled the whole story into a nice, neat manuscript ready for publication, too. But then Hurley here was all funny about it, remember? He was very mean. That story must not be published, you said, very mysteriously as well. Really? I said that? Are you sure? Do you perhaps know something about it as well, Mr. Sholmes? The Hound of Baskervilles? Is that what they're talking about? How come I don't remember this from the first game, if it's something that apparently has already happened and Ryunosuke was involved? About why Miss Sato was suddenly told 4 months ago that she had to return to Japan? Miss Sato's repatriation. It's been 4 months now since we waved Susie off at Dover. It was such a shock, wasn't it? The way she just suddenly announced that she had to go back to Japan? Indeed it was, due to a telegram she received from her homeland, I believe. That's right, telling her to return urgently. Yeah, it's because her father had passed away. Had gotten sick, but, No. It just said he was suffering from a high fever, the cause of which was unknown. He's not dead. But according to this letter, that news about her father's fever was just a ruse. A ruse? So Susie's daddy lied to her so that she'd make the voyage back home? Why would he do that? I have to admit, I have absolutely no idea. But she believes it's almost certainly related to the case of the haunted lodgings. Summoning her back to Japan so suddenly like that. I wonder what Mr. Sato's father is hiding. Hurley, do you know what it's all about? Ah, well, who can say? What? But you said... Please, I have engagements, my dear fellow. My calendar is quite surprisingly full today. And a stringent analysis of the matter would be excessive, I feel, even if I were quite at leisure. So, man the fort in my absence, won't you, Iris? I will, Hurley. Don't worry. See you later. He scuttled off rather quickly there. He definitely knows something and doesn't want to talk about it. I think perhaps Professor Mikotoba isn't the only person hiding something here. Sosake-san was involved in 2 cases, but only one of them was forbidden from being published. By, of all people, Mr. Sholmes. Aha! I found them at last! Iris, are they... Notes about the case? That's right! Susie and I compiled them together. The case of the haunted lodgings. Do you want to read them, Bruno? Absolutely. Thank you, Iris. I have no idea what secrets could still be hiding in the shadows of this case. But perhaps if I read over the notes again, something might come to light. That's the spirit! And so sorry. Iris and I decided to read over the case notes again together. Everything from what happened to our investigation and that fierce battle in the court that followed. Reliving every detail. I just need to find a clue, and I have all the time in the world. It's really... I keep saying it, but they keep bringing up a second case, and I have no idea what they're talking about. I genuinely have no idea what they're talking about, because it wasn't in the first game. We only had the one case. Because, of course, I'm no longer allowed to practice law in the courts of Great Britain. Was it because of this case or something that we got disbarred? Or was it the perjury in the McGilda case? It was 6 months ago, a mysterious incident that unfolded on the wintry streets of London. A young woman was found lying on the snowy pavement on Briar Road with a knife in her back. Fortunately, her life was spared, but she was unconscious for several days following the incident. The fog was thick, and nobody saw her attack her, but by a cruel twist of fate, a visiting Japanese student was walking behind her at the time, and was duly arrested. That man was Osaki-san, and the man who effected his arrest was Mr. Sholmes. Believing in our compatriot's innocence, Susato and I decided to represent Sasaki-san in court. And, after a grueling trial of many twists and turns, we finally managed to prove his innocence. Joyful! Joyous! Jubilant! Jubilation! Was the man's reaction after the trial, but his jubilant jubilation was short-lived. I have no idea what's going on in the chat right now. We received a telegram from Mr. Sholmes the following morning. The victim of the Briar Road stabbing has regained consciousness. Hurry to Bart's at once. So Susato-san and I summoned a hansom and headed immediately to the hospital. February 21st, 5:30 a.m. St. Bartholomew's Hospital Recovery Ward. There you are, at last! Good morning, Mr. Sholmes. I think not. Oh! Wrong voice. You're late! What on earth took you so long? Your telegram only arrived at 5 o'clock, Mr. Sholmes, and it's a 20-minute ride to the hospital. That's right, and it's 5:30 now. I think we made very good time. The time is utterly irrelevant. The fact is, I have been waiting for what has felt like an eternity. In point of fact, I myself was awoken at 4 this morning by a telegram boy. And feeling it was somewhat unjust that I alone had been roused at such an hour, I sent one to you. Well, thanks for that. Anyway, you're here now, so the victim is over there. She's only just regained consciousness. You should introduce yourselves, and I shall observe from here. So that's the lady who was found on the snow-covered pavement with the knife in her back. Her name is... Ah, yes, here we are, Miss Green. Let's see... good morning. Hello, I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo, from the Empire of Japan. Oh no! Oh, what? I'm sorry, was it your knife that... Are you the man who... No, no, no. I'm a lawyer. And I'm Susato Mikotoba. Pleased to meet you. Oh no! Was it your knife then? Are you the one? No, 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 I assure you, I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. We heard that you'd regained consciousness and wanted to come to give you our best wishes. Best wishes? For me? Thank you. I'm Olive. Olive Green. I'm an artist. Well, no, that's not right, is it? What I mean is, I'm trying to be an artist. Well, what I really mean is, I desperately want to be an artist. I'm starting to feel this woman a little bit. Where this woman is coming from. But the truth is, I don't have any talent. I know I don't. Yeah, definitely starting to see where she's coming from. It's no wonder I was stabbed in the back. I don't think that's related, actually. Gosh, this young woman seems to bend over backwards to put herself down. Seeing as we're here, we should ask her about what happened from her perspective, I suppose. About the incident. To suddenly be struck in the back by a blade as you were walking along the pavement. What a terrible experience you had, Miss Green. I was so cold that day, and the fog was so thick, I couldn't see a thing. That was 4 days ago now, I think. Is that right? Yes, that's right. I'm afraid you've been comatose all that time. But the case has been solved, hasn't it? While I've been here in hospital, I mean.
Indeed it has, my dear madame! Spectacularly, by none other than I, Herlock Sholmes!
Mr. Sholmes, as you well know, it was Mr. Naruhodo's hard work in court that solved the case. Are you yet to hear what happened, Miss Green? Yes, I'm afraid so. A gentleman from the police force is supposed to be coming to fill me in shortly. Oh, I see. Me coming around seems to have made everyone frantically busy. I'm so sorry. I should never have regained consciousness. It was selfish of me. Oh no! We're also relieved that you're on the mend, Miss Green. Really, we are. With that kind of attitude, maybe her surname should be Blue, not Green. About yourself. So, you're an artist, are you, Miss Green? Oh no! I couldn't possibly claim that. I'm a fledgling artist at best. I mean, I'm a student of art, really. I'm at the Thorndike Academy of Fine Arts. Oh my! An Academy of Fine Arts? Great Britain is such a wonderful country.
Tell me, Miss Green, do you live hereabouts?
Oh no, actually. I don't deserve it, but I have a little flat on Brixton Road.
I see. How very interesting.
Oh no, is it?
Brixton is some 10 stops away from on the underground from here. And Thorndike Academy is a mere 3-minute walk from Brixton town center. Does that matter?
I'm sorry, does that matter, Mr. Sholmes?
Perhaps not, but Briar Road is far less salubrious part of town by comparison. Dwelt in by those of inferior means, including the malfeasant, I can't read today, Mr. Mustache.
Inferior means? I suppose Sasaki-san does fit the bill.
It struck me as somewhat out of the ordinary for a young fine arts student to be walking in such a district. That's all.
What's this? She suddenly clammed up.
Mr. Sholmes, you should be ashamed of yourself, prying into a young man's private affairs. Oh dear me, do forgive me.
If you don't mind. I'm being discharged shortly, so I need to pack up my things. Oh, yes, of course. We won't keep you. Thank you so much, Miss Green. One second, I need to make disgusting sinus noises. I'm back. This rounded wooden figure is the most charming, isn't it? Ah, I don't think that's a decoration, Mr. Naruhodo. It's an artist's mannequin, I believe, used when practicing sketching the human form in different poses. Really? It's not exactly what you'd call a typical figure for that purpose, though, is it? No, I suppose not. I confess I've never seen one quite so full-figured before. Well, if you want to draw a full-figured person, it's the right tool for the job. Look, there's a photograph in this frame here. As opposed to a frame that doesn't have a photograph in it. Oh yes, a picture of a young gentleman. He looks to be about the same age as Miss Green, I would say. Perhaps the young woman's special someone, do you think? My, Mr. Naruhodo, I didn't know you had a sense for matters of the heart. Not in the least. I sincerely said the first thing I thought of. And I'm guessing that's it. That's everything we need to know. Is there a Mr. Naruhodo here? Mr. Naruhodo? Narrow fodder! Narrow fodder now? Well, if you're looking for Naruhodo, the lawyer, that's me. But, Mr. Narrow fodder. Good. This is for you. It's a message from Mr. Saucy Nutmeg. Mr. Natsume? Send a message to me? But why would a policeman be delivering a message from Mr. Natsume? Exactly. What's going on? What's a Scotland Yard constable doing playing delivery boy at this time in the morning? What are you waiting for? Let me see that! Oh! Well, this is most unexpected. Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes? Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes, he says. Have you not seen this note? No, how could I have? It would seem that London's criminals have no intention of letting the great detective rest. A new case calls. A case of murder, no less. We must depart at once. Murder? Call a cab. Time is of the essence. But the trouble is, we've yet to read Mr. Natsume's note. I was thinking we ought to pay him a visit in his lodgings once we did. That will be entirely convenient. Convenient? What do you mean? It's all here in the note, my dear fellows. The murder we must investigate took place at Mr. Mustache's lodgings. Wait, what? Yeah, I'm just as surprised as Naruhodo here. I'll hail a fiacre at once. It was only yesterday that Sosaki-san was in court, and we were dispelling doubts about his innocence. And now, the very next day, there's a murder at the man's own address? He may very well be the unluckiest man alive. Or so it seemed to us at the time, but we were soon to discover it was worse than we thought. February 7:18 a.m. Mr. Natsume's lodgings. Ground floor. Oh! That guy! What on earth? Also, why is the room not a mess all of a sudden? It used to be full of books. What's happening? Oh my! The gentleman's deceased without question! He's dead! Look who's doing Mr. Naruhodo Esquire! Mr. Natsume! Oh, why? Why is this happening? Why to me? I've only just got out of court yesterday, and I was finally home after 2 days of misery. Then I wake up the next day to this. Nowhere will I approach a catch a worm like this. Woeful worm without wiggle. I say, you're in high spirits again this morning, Mr. Mustache. Ag! Not the horrible Alec Sholmes! Shoo! Shut off! Show yourself to the door! I never invited you! Mr. Sholmes came here with us. I'm quite sure he'll be able to help you, Mr. Natsume.
I am entirely at your disposal, Mr. Mustache. What can I do for you?
Yes.
Here they are already. The busybodies. Ah, Inspector Gregson. What a pleasant surprise. Pleasant, is it? Gives me heartburn every time I see your face in a crime scene, Sholmes. Ha! I deduce, Inspector, that your heartburn is a result of your excess consumption of fried food.
Good morning, Inspector.
This is a crime scene! Don't go touch anything!
Or good morning to you too, Sunshine.
Well, first things first. Oi! I said hands off! You're gonna mess up my crime scene!
No. I just wanted to look, that's all.
Next hands! I know you're kind! You'll mess it up before, just by looking at it.
Someone's in a bad mood.
There's certainly some bad air in here, isn't there?
Alright, sounds like I'd better talk to the inspector first and try to curry some favor. So, Inspector, what was the victim's name? Who was he?
They did tell us that in the first game, but I don't remember. Mr. William Shamspeare! He was the lodger here. As you can probably tell, he was an actor. A bit of a dead loss as it happens, or just dead.
Mr. Shamspeare.
It was the landlord, Mr. Garrity, and the other lodger, Mr. Natsume, who found him. The fellow didn't rise at his usual hour, so Garrity got word and kicked the door down.
But, I'm sorry. But doesn't Mr. Garrity have a bad leg?
Yeah, you're right there. It was that jittery Japanese hunchback over there who actually did the kicking.
Really? Sasaki-san?
Well, I guess that explains why he's
I'm sorry. I had thought... There we go. I just got back. I guess that explains why all of a sudden all the books are gone.
The victim was pretty hot up, it seems. Even done some time inside for petty crimes. He had no money, no place to go, no friends. His only acquaintances were the people in his house. Miserable life, and miserable end to it.
So, what exactly is Mr. Natsume still doing here? He's not involved in the investigation, so shouldn't you have sent him away from the crime scene?
Well, I'm not saying it's because the fellow looks odd or anything, or that he acts suspicious. But I thought it would be prudent to take a statement from the culprit, cohabiter.
You nearly said culprit there, didn't you? Oh dear, Mr. Natsume appears to be under suspicion again. It certainly seems that way. He does just come across as such an odd fellow, doesn't he? Poor man, how unfortunate.
Anyway, I can't say much until the coroner gets here. But I don't think the fellow's been gone for that long. The body's still warm.
Even if the inspector won't, even if the inspector would allow it, I don't think I could bring myself to touch a dead body. So, can I? No, I cannot do that. What a terrible thing to have happened. It's only been 3 days. It's only been 3 days since I was arrested for the incident on the pavement outside. And then, having finally regained my freedom, it starts happening all over again. And this existence of excruciating experiences! So the victim lived here on the ground floor, and your room is just one story up, isn't it? Yes, that's right! In a way, we were neighbors, I suppose. So, did you know the victim? Were you friends? Okay, at this point, I'm expecting, like, the chains from the Magatama and the second and third Ace Attorney games to pop up here. What's the matter with Sasaki-san now? It was an innocent enough question, wasn't it? Why does he seem so shaken by it? Well, I suppose he wasn't a complete stranger. But did he ever invite me to his room? Never! On my honor, I swear it! What an extreme reaction. You're probably wishing you'd never asked now, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? When we found him here, I felt wretched, which is why I sent word asking you to come.
Through that inspector over there!
The cursor only moves at one speed. What the hell is he doing? Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing?
Ha! You need only observe to know what it is. To know it, my dear fellow. Investigating naturally.
There's nothing natural about that pose. Mr. Sholmes, have you made some miraculous discovery?
Patience, my dear madame, patience. We have not been here in this room for 5 minutes. So far, all I've managed to deduce is what actually happened.
My goodness! But isn't that everything we need to know, Mr. Sholmes?
Now that you propose the idea, I believe one could indeed see it that way. At the present time, I have managed to draw 2 incontrovertible conclusions. The first, that there was a physical struggle here last night in which the victim fought for his life. Ah! Ah!
Mr. Natsume, what's wrong? Is something that Mr. Sholmes said significant somehow? No! Don't mind me!
Forget I was here! And my second conclusion is that there was a poison lingering in the air here last night that passed the victim's lips. Nonsense!
Ah! The fact that he knows all of this stuff is, suspicious. Alright, Mr. Natsume, why are you reacting so extremely to Mr. Sholmes' deductions?
No! Please! Pretend I'm not here! Invisible! Ineffable! Inscrutable! Insignificant!
Impossible to ignore. You must tell us everything, Mr. Sholmes. Spare no detail.
Here we go. But of course, let the theatrical tragedy before us be unraveled by my great deductions, presented for your pleasure in 2 acts.
We've heard some truly astounding great deductions from Mr. Sholmes in the past. No doubt this will be no exception. What miracles will unfold before our eyes this time?
So, my dear fellows, for your delight and wonder, let the curtain rise for Herlock Sholmes, Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1.
The Great Deduction. The game is afoot. Cause of death. In all honesty, it just kind of looks like some butter went bad.
Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night.
I still have no idea what's going on in the chat.
Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate, which contains, you will observe, 1/2 sizable bar of soap. Meaningful? Indubitably.
He ate soap?
Which is why why is this soap so purposefully upon the dish? Like the victim's last supper, in fact, yes?
I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of trouble just reading today.
Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course! The fork reveals the answer. It appears that the young man's appetite was his undoing. Taking up arms in the form of his cutlery, the victim engaged in a deadly battle for his life. Yet the struggle against his hunger was in vain, for in the end, he couldn't resist devouring the slippery feast. But London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the content of the plate. The soap and the lather about the young man's mouth are too perfectly matched to ignore. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to excessive ingestion of foul soap. Though, personally, I have greater interest in the taste of foul candle wax, of course.
suicide or murder?
The cause of death identified, we proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall the death occurred during the victim's last supper. Did the man die alone? The single teacup suggests the answer. To draw a conclusion to such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. The careful criminal could have absconded with his own cup to cover his tracks. Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. Though forced open now, at the time of the incident, this door was locked. And the soul key was in the victim's pocket. In other words, when the victim consumed the poison, he must have been alone. Alone with his inferior soap, from whence wafted an inferior scent. And with that acrid aroma lingering in the air, the victim met his end in tragic solitude. We can take comfort only in the fact that his soul was well cleansed on its way to the hereafter.
No possible perpetrator present.
Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholmes' great deduction.
There's just one thing, Mr. Sholmes.
You are disposed for identifying just one thing, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Pray, what concerns you?
Well, no matter how hungry he was, do you really think the man would have eaten soap?
It is quite apparent that this man had barely a penny to his name. It is a curious thing, but to one so destitute, soap can suddenly appear quite irresistibly appetizing.
How extraordinary!
In truth, I have tried a little soap myself in the past. You've eaten it, you mean? My dear fellow, it was some time ago now. My postulation was that it would cleanse my gut.
And did it?
As I writhed in agony on the floor and split the contents of my stomach, yes, I believe it did. The experience taught me a valuable lesson. Soap is quite poisonous. It has an unpleasant taste and leads to great discomfort. In summary, I cannot recommend it.
Believe me, I wouldn't eat it even if you did. There's something that troubles me as well, actually. Oh, what's that? It's Mr. Natsume.
Ah!
I couldn't help noticing him shuddering and quivering out of the corner of my eye. Almost as if Mr. Sholmes' deductions touched a nerve somehow.
Nonsense!
Well, that clenched teeth episode didn't last. I think, judging by Mr. Natsume's reaction, the great detective's deductions may need some gentle corrections in order to reach the actual truth. Yes, Mr. Sholmes' observations and deductions are sometimes a little too sharp. He has a tendency to hit the nail on the side of the head and drive it in at an obtuse angle. When he does that, it falls to us to straighten things out. Alright then, let's see what we can do. Yes, we must pick out the key words in Mr. Sholmes' quite brilliant deductions, and discreetly exchange them for something that makes a little more sense. If we can do that, I'm sure we'll arrive at what Mr. Sholmes meant to say in the first place.
In that case, are you ready for the second performance of the day? Once again, my dear fellows, for your continued delight and wonder, let the curtains rise. For Herlock Sholmes, Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1.
To save my voice, I'm not going to be going... There's a lot of stuff I'm not going to be going over again. Just to save my own voice. Careful observation, yeah. Well, you can't deny that a fork implies the man was eating something, or about to eat something. Yes, that's true. If I were to decide to eat some soap, I should prefer to use a fork than to attempt it with chopsticks. And of course, only half of the bar of soap is left on the plate. But might there not be some other explanation? Something material that proves whether or not the man really ate some soap? Let's see. Maybe the cup? Do you think he was drinking tea with his soap? The cup's empty, so there's no way of knowing. How about this for an idea? Perhaps the cup was full of water, and he was dissolving soap in it so he could gulp as much down as possible. Please remember that he may not actually have been the soap lover that he's been made out to be. I suppose you'd eat soap with a fork, wouldn't you? I don't think it's a question of which implement you'd use. You shouldn't eat soap, full stop. But then why? Why does this man have a fork in his hand? Oh dear. I understand your frustration, Mr. Naruhodo, but please don't take it out on me. The point is, if we decide the man used this fork to eat the soap, we wouldn't be changing Mr. Sholm's deduction. So we really ought to consider some other clues. The only thing else that I see is the teacup.
Take that!
I don't think this is correct. Oh, what?! Okay, well, what else is it? Saving now, just in case I screw up. Vivacious may not be the most appropriate term to describe a dead man, Mr. Sholmes. Okay. Okay. Okay, I gotta go through this again. No, I can't speed through it. Because, of course. The only two things I can interact with is the fork and the teacup. Wait. I did not see this before. No, I can't, like, turn at slower speeds. Oh, I see. This is the game, isn't it? It's gonna be all like the first case. In the game's defense, this is more my fault for not noticing it.
Take that!
But still. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course. The other piece of soap reveals the answer. It being the other half of the soap on the table. In short, the victim was not eating soap at all. But it's obvious, really, for no depth of hunger could drive any man to attempt to eat soap. Even I, with my unquenchable thirst for practical knowledge, took only a single bite. But that begs the question of how the man was poisoned, because there's no sign of any food on the table.
An excellent observation, Mr. Naruhodo, and one that furnishes us with the answer we seek. For London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of this plate.
Perhaps he suggested the man lick the soap rather than ate it? If soap in London is that poisonous, I don't think I want to be washing my hands with it. But there are no signs of any food in this room at all. Of course, food isn't the only thing that passes people's lips, is it?
Take that!
Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the teacup.
Indeed, cups have been the vessel of choice for practicing poisoners over the centuries. And it would appear that this victim drank every last drop.
There's no sign of food anywhere in this room.
Which leads us to the immutable conclusion. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to the ingestion of poison contained in this teacup.
Poison in the tea.
The cause of death identified as we proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was it suicide or murder? The audience will recall that... here we go again.
The Western vessel for infused hot drinks again. It's already featured heavily in our deductions so far. Yes, we can imagine that shortly before his death, Mr. Shamsphere was having a drink of tea. There would be nothing remarkable about that, but what troubles me is Mr. Natsume's reaction when he heard Mr. Shum suggest it. There's more to this deduction than it seems. We must closely examine the scene of the crime again for more clues. Single teacup. Scene...
Oh, wait! There's another teacup right here!
Take that!
Did the man dine and die alone? This other teacup suggests the answer. Yes, there were 2 teacups in this room all along! In other words, this is a strong indication at the victim's Last Supper. There was a guest present, and it was the head juror from the 3rd case?
At the very least, we can say now with certainty that somebody else was here in this room last night taking tea with the victim. What are you talking about? Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly, unreasonable! To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. In which case, what more can we deduce about this possible guest at the table? Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow!
Do you mean to say you know who exactly was in this room at the time of the victim's death?
Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is this broken lock.
I'm not sure I like where this deduction is going now. I'm afraid it's too late to go back to the halcyon days of eating too much soap. But the identity of the guest who was in here last night when the victim passed away is something I have a very bad feeling about. Well, you can try to ignore your feelings, but we cannot ignore the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. No, I suppose not. Time to look around again. I think I know exactly what they're talking about, actually.
Take that!
Nope, that's not it! It's been too long. It's been too long. I'm not gonna bother. I wish I could just skip this. But no, I cannot. Okay, so what else is it? If it's not the book, what else is it? And again, I can't speed through this either. I screwed up. Let me try again. It's empty. Empty of liquid, but full of air. That makes you think, doesn't it? It makes me think that you're full of hot air. We should be thinking about who else was in the room at the time. Brother, Sasao-san's quip in response was cleverer than my original riddle. Even Mr. Shamespirit didn't eat candles, it seems. We've already established that he didn't eat soap either. Ah, do you think perhaps the guest brought this candle here last night? Even if he or she did, does it reveal anything about the guest's identity? Good point. There goes my idea, snuffed out like a candle will be. If you sigh so deeply, Mr. Naruhodo, you're in danger of blowing out the flame. Well, I can't examine the glasses. I can't save. Damn it. Bottle! That's not it either. Ah, thank you. Thank you, game. Thank you very much. One second, I have to make the disgusting sinus noises again. My apologies for having you hear that a little bit. For whatever reason, the click didn't register. Ah, here we go again. With the backwards ass logic. Here we go. What's the logic here? I want you to hear how fast I'm clicking this button. Okay, there are only 4 things I can examine here. The books, the empty bottle, the broken lock, and this flame. There is nothing else I can examine. The lock doesn't help us. The candle doesn't help us. Both of these are wrong. Is this the case where I have to examine this shit first? So my logic was not wrong. I have to examine it first. I need to know every little tiny detail about something before I can present it as evidence. Even if those details mean nothing. This is a game. This is the fucking game. I was holding out hope that the first case was an outlier. That this was not going to be the entire game. But this proves me wrong. And I am genuinely considering switching to another game for these Tuesday streams now. And they can't even claim, oh, well, this is for the person, this is for the people who haven't played the first game. Because those wouldn't mean anything to you unless you played the first game! Now I can present it. Now I can fucking present it. Now I can present it and it'll be correct. I can't just be like, oh, like you had this massive fascination for books. We can just check the titles and just be like, oh yeah, that's it. I can't present it first and then have them check later. No, apparently I can't do that. I need to know every single little detail. I am so fucking tired of this. Now I can present it. Now I can fucking present it. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the pile of familiar books. I couldn't present them earlier, but now that I know they're familiar, despite the fact that I know for... Oh my god. You know what? I just now see what I'm talking... I just now see the other argument. This is what I do when I get mad. I try to find ways to justify the thing that I'm upset about. And sometimes when I do, I wind up coming back at myself like I'm an idiot. Because yeah, if you haven't played the first game, then you wouldn't know Mr. Natsume is a book nut. Actually, now that I think about it, no, you would, because in the first case it said he was an author. So I don't know. I'm very mad that it's not my logic that was incorrect. It's that if it was my logic about, it's not that I had the wrong idea. It's that I didn't present my idea the way the game wanted me to present it. Quite so, there's no mere coincidence that these three titles are here in this room. It's the link to the truth. Mr. Natsume, you purchased these books 4 days ago at the secondhand bookshop. That's just a coincidence. In that case, you will be able to bring the same 3 titles from your own room, will you not? This very moment. If you can bring your own copies here, it proves that these 3 books are in fact yours. Having purchased the books 4 days ago and returned to your lodgings, you were arrested the very next day. So you could conceivably have brought your books there, here on that evening, but you never mentioned them. In other words, you could only have brought these 3 books here here to the victim's room. Last night, having returned to your lodgings after the trial concluded at the Old Bailey. In short, there is only one possible conclusion. The victim died here in his room last night as a result of poisoning. And that same night, the victim had a visitor. And that visitor was you, Mr. Sosake Natsume. Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholmes' Great Deduction. Deduction complete, elementary. Well then, Mr. Natsume, it would appear you're going to have to accompany me down to the yard again. Yes? Door, key, lock, entry, exit, entirely impossible. He's so flustered he's been even stranger than normal. What, you think that's an alibi? You could have just made a copy. What? You live in the same building after all. You'd have plenty of opportunity, I'm sure. Sorry, sir. You'll get your chance to give your side of the story later. The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Mustache. He really has found himself an arch rival now, hasn't he? Come on now, no dilly-dallying. Outside, there's a carriage waiting. Welcome to Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. I never imagined I'd be in this position again, but... You have to help me, please, please. I'm innocent. Alright, I understand. We'll come to your cell later and talk about it. And one more thing. Oh, yes? My poor little kitty cat. Please give him his breakfast for me. And so, his evil curse still apparently unbroken. Sasaki-san found himself once again the prime suspect, the prime suspect in a case of murder. Thanks to the incriminating deduction of the great detective. My dear fellow, the honor belongs to you. Well, at least that means Inspector Rexon is no longer here. We can examine the crime scene in more detail now. Yes, that's right. And of course, what? Have you forgotten what the inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garadib, who discovered Mr. Shamspear. Ah, Mr. Garadib, yes. I expect we could find him in his sitting room on the top floor. Top floor as usual. Right, we must remember to go and talk to him later then. I still have no idea what's going on in the chat. Ah, one of the teacups that Mr. Shamspear and his guest drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's bitter poison inside. I'm not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Anyway, the cups are both empty. That's true, so one was Mr. Shamspear's, and the other must be the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Sasaki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps we should take these so we can examine them in more detail later. The pair of teacups has been entered into the court record. I better inspect every single little detail about these shit. About this fucking... This is the teacup from which Mr. Natsume was drinking. Yes, unlike the other one, the inside of the cup is completely clean. I suppose he must have drunk the contents before the tea had a chance to leave a mark. I always gulp it down too. Sorry, Mr. Naruhodo. Well, if you just sip it little by little, it goes cold. Clearly, I shall have to instruct you in the proper way to take tea. This must be the cup that Mr. Shamspear was drinking from then. It's stained on the inside. Tea does that, I'm afraid. Even green tea. Oh, really? I've never noticed before. You've never noticed? Well, I never leave it in the cup long enough to leave a mark. I like to gulp it down. Drink tea while it's hot. That's the Japanese way, isn't it? Oh dear. So many people seem to have the wrong idea about our culture. And most of them are Japanese. Look at these extravagant, bright costumes. Somehow they look out of place in this room with its grim, shady goings-on. This one looks like a king's attire. A king? I've always dreamt of being a king. Oh, I think you'd be more suited for to a feudal lord, a daimyo or such like. With a kanmej top knot, every Japanese man wishes he had a kanmej. Oh, you'd look wonderful with one, and you already have the sword. Can you imagine what would happen if I walked around the streets of London with a kanmej instead of a sword? There's not much on these shelves, is there? It's just like this wine glass and bottle. And both of them are cracked. Yes, not much use, are they? What's the matter? Oh, I was just reminded of the Reaper, that's all. Prosecutor Lord Van Zieks? Yes, he's so reckless with his wine glasses. I was thinking it's a waste and that he should donate some to the needy. You can suggest it next time we meet. As we've seen from the outside, the window is completely bricked up. A vestige of the former window tax that Britain had to pay. What strange things they used to tax in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had in a property is extraordinary. It's heartbreaking to think of the poor having to block up their windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax. Oh! What is it, Mr. Sato? If you look closely, a number of the bricks are loose. Soap? Oh yes, it looks as though an amateur has broken out a few of them just here. Was it Mr. Shamsphere who did it? I wonder, being the lodger running this room? Ah, look at this, Mr. Naruhodo. On the outside, there's a little ledge. And there's something on it. What? Outside? Well, just why do I have to examine it again? Brr, it's so cold outside. You can feel it through this gap. It did snow all last night. It would be cold. But more importantly, what is on the ledge out there? What are those snow-covered lumps? It's more bars of soap. Soap? What? We've already... It already looks... You know, I don't even know why I don't even know. I have no idea. But the pair of them look rather charming like that. I still have no idea what's going on in chat. Still, that's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap lined up outside the window. I think perhaps we should take one. There are two, after all. Oh dear, I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here at this soap. Ah! Do you see? In the middle here. There's a patch that's a different color. It's sort of transparent, but some sort of fancy design, I suppose? Only in Great Britain. It looks like the Hinomaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? How wonderful! It's probably a very expensive brand. Expensive? Then what's it doing in this ramshackle old room? Alright, time to examine this closely. This part is a different color. It's an exquisite design, isn't it? Trust the British to turn a boring bar of soap into something special. I quite like it. It reminds me of the Hinomaru design of the Japanese flag. I expect this is a rather expensive soap. That doesn't seem likely given who it belongs to. Well, I believe that's everything. At least when it comes to the soap. And here we have another disproportionately large machine. This looks like a meter of some kind. Ah, this is a gas meter, I think. It seems that in this district, residents pay for gas as they use it with coins. Ah, I see. Yes, now you've pointed it out. I can see that there's a slot here, just that here that looks like it would take a coin. I'm very sorry. So you mean if you put a coin in here... That's right. That would buy you about 2 hours of gas for lights and heating. So, if you were a poor person with no money, you'd have to sleep in the freezing cold? Yes, or if you were a scatterbrain with no change because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. Thank goodness there's no meter in our office. This is a gas wall light, isn't it? It must be connected to a gas pipe in the wall. Gas lights? A gas stove? London really is a city of gas. But now that I think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Garrideeb had an open fire on the top floor, didn't they? Oh yes, you're right! I don't recall seeing a gas stove up there. Well, I much prefer a real fire anyway. It's so much cozier. Right, now over here to the stage. This is some sort of makeshift stage, I think, isn't it? Where does the audience sit, though, for the nightly Shakespeare performances? Actors aspiring to the great stage must practice their art, Mr. Naruhodo, with or without an audience. In fact, on a related note, perhaps you should set up a mock bench in your for the defense in your office. What? Then you could practice your art every single day. I'll think about it, if you promise to don a beard and play the role of the judge. Well, if that would help you achieve your goal, this I have to see. That appears to be everything we can examine in this room. "21st of February, the Garrideeb's room. Here we are again, the eccentric landlord's eccentric top floor abode. We're here because Mr. Garrideeb, the one who discovered the incident this morning, don't forget. Ah, are you Chops there? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It was quite a trial. As much for Mr. Garrideeb as anyone, really. Once again, I have to make those disgusting noises. I apologize. Came straight back here after all that business at the Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Garrideeb. Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that. That dead loss of an actor chap in the ground floor room. Those were exactly Inspector Gregson's words, weren't they? Okay, converse. This morning's incident. It must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what had happened. Oh, well, that hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. But at 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but no bally answered. And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door? Well, I called that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course. Wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? The man could have just overslept by half an hour. That's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning. Well, you know, better to be safe, better be safe than sorry and all that. Is it just me, or is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden? Except that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the far side of the door. Mr. Shamspeare. The victim's name is Mr. Shamspeare, I believe. Is that right? Yes, William Shamspeare. Took the ground floor room 3 months ago now. And how would you describe him? In a word, destitute. Destitute? Well, let's face it. The only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a bally screw loose. So hard to choose which category Saseki-san would fall into. Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude. He was doing research as well. Research? Into what? Shakespeare, of course, Shakespeare. Read a few plays of the old bard myself, you know. Romeo and Hamlet and all that. I think it's Romeo and Juliet and then Hamlet. Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author. He's known as Sao in Japan, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated. It seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Someone was too heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there? Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shamspeare would have had much in common. Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder. Let's hope it's not that. Mr. Naruhodo, really? How rude! Yesterday's events. After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning? Well, no. Must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark already. That failed actor chap was out at the time. Mr. Garrity noticed there was no light in his room or something, I suppose. Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shamspeare got back, and the chap was up until past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he met his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there. Well, thank you. That was very illuminating. Is everything alright, Miss Susato? Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Garrity, you were up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correct. Not a big fan of stairs, not with this blasted leg. Then, how is it that you seem to know the precise movements of your tenant on the ground floor? Arr! That's a very good point. I can't imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Thank you, Mom. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it? I say, I know what you're thinking, and it's a bally outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants. Why would I? Then how did you know Mr. Garrity? I'm sorry, the delivery of that line was completely off. I apologize. It's the gas, woman. The gas tells me everything. The gas? Speaking gas? What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes. Yes, I'd more or less worked that out. Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside. And the gas company supplies gas to properties via the main. Yes, I understand that too. Let me see if I can explain. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen? Well, obviously the room would get brighter. Exactly, but at the same time, the lights in all the other rooms of the house were dim for a moment. What? They dim? Why? Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual. And that reduces the amount of gas in the pipes for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, mightn't it? Where's my, there it is. Of course, because everything's connected to a single supply pipe. I suppose that's... is that supposed to happen, though? It sounds rather undesirable. Really good point. The fact is, the gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless, long worn out, and barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's also true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here, and they all glow brighter in the rest of the house. Ah, right. I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere. You've got it. Oh, of course, because when people come back home in the evening and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps in fires. Clever. In point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. By watching the lights here in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house. Gosh, that's fascinating, Mr. Garrity. Absolutely fascinating. Oh, well, nothing to it, really. And I can't really see that it's going to help us with the case, either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Garrity was so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. I don't think this is gonna do anything. Yeah, he's just saying that he's got nothing to say about that. Sorry. You know what? I don't think any of this is relevant, and if I'm being honest with you guys, I kind of want to end the stream. I'm sorry, but that whole thing has just really brought me down. I'm sorry? There we go. The A button on my controller must be a little messed up. He's not here. Alright, to Briar Road then. "21st of February, Briar Road." And can't do anything. Wait, no, we can't examine. Actually, hold on. Can we examine back at the prison? No, we could not. Alright, back to Briar Road then. Why has somebody built this snowman on some sort of pedestal, do you think? 1 second, again with the noises. That's happening a lot in today's stream. That's not a pedestal, Mr. Naruhodo. That's part of the snowman's body. Really? But it already has a perfectly good body. Well, it's true that British snowmen are usually made with 2 balls of snow. Perhaps this is a foreigner. And now we're looking at him as if he's strange. Poor man, I know how he feels. If anything, it's Japanese and British, it's Japanese and British 2 ball snowmen that are the strange ones, isn't it? After all, real people do have 3 sections: head, torso, and legs. Do you ever think that perhaps you think about things too much? With the exception of the top floor where Mr. and Mrs. Garrity live, all the windows are bricked up. Yes, that's because of an old window tax that was charged on the number of windows the property had. In order to pay less tax, the poorer members of society filled in many of their windows. The tax has since been abolished, hasn't it? So the windows could all be opened up again, surely. Unfortunately, it would appear that the residents of this district can't afford to pay to have the work done. Yes, that is a sad state of affairs. Especially for people like poor Mr. Natsume, who have to live all cooped up in a windowless room. I suppose that's the price you pay for living in very cheap accommodation. It all seems rather pointless when you put it like that. London's blanketed in fog today and the sky is covered in cloud. But if you look carefully in the distance, you can just make out the Crystal Tower being built. Ah, the Crystal Tower! Yes, the centerpiece of the great exhibition that's to open in 6 months' time. Everyone's talking about the Great Exhibition of London at the moment, it seems. Well, it's to be the largest event of its kind anywhere in the world, with technology and scientists from all over. I can't wait for it myself! Do you think visiting students from the Far East like us will be granted entry? The last great exhibition was held in London. Had more than 6 million visitors, it seems. And this time, the British are determined to make it an even bigger success, to outdo the Paris exposition. I see. That's an incredible number of people. And with so many people expected to attend, we should easily be able to slip in unnoticed. There's always the honest approach of buying tickets at the main entrance, Mr. Naruhodo. There always seems to be a bicycle outside the Garrity residence. I read that bicycles are extremely popular all over Great Britain at the moment, in fact. That one seems very warped, though, especially the front wheel. Is that to make it more of a challenge to ride, do you think? No, I'm afraid that may be the result of the rider's incompetence. For the front wheel to be so badly warped, I'm afraid the rider may have been similarly afflicted. Then there's a good chance Mr. Natsume has been practicing on this bicycle, I think. Oh dear, I fear you may be right. Hey, I just noticed the soap here. Whatever. The Garrity household, Mr. Natsume's lodgings, are in a prominent position there on the corner. Sometimes when I look at the building, I can't help feeling that it's at a bit of a slant. Yeah, I see it. It does look as though it would collapse in even the smallest earthquake, doesn't it? And isn't it supposed to be haunted as well? I think I might have a hunch as to why Sasaki-san has such a hunched back. Alright, well, back inside Mr. Shamspeare's room. Maybe now I can't, maybe I was supposed to examine the body? I was thinking maybe I couldn't because of that line about, like, him not wanting to touch a dead body. Oh, the poor man, so young to die. Do you suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was? I don't know. All we can do now is hope that he'll be reborn to a better life. Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder. Do you think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Sorry? I made sure I had a reference at the ready for just such an occasion as this, actually. This book is entitled The Beginner's Guide to Praying for the Departed, the British Way. I'll just reread it now. One moment. There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? Oh, that doesn't help me. Does not help me one bit. Okay. I guess I'm just gonna have to look around for a bit. You know what that screen is hiding now. The aftermath of the fiery altercation the other day. Don't suppose I'll be able to clear that mess up for some time now. Oh dear, this must be a very difficult situation for you. I'll say, people talk about twists of fate and whatnot. But this is a twist and a half, a rotten show all around. He's clearly struggling with everything that's happened. You look very dashing in your uniform there, Mr. Garrity. Ah, that old portrait, eh? Drawn by an art student who used to rent the room downstairs. Oh, you look so wonderfully young and courageous and strong. Yes, well, the chap presented it to me one day and asked if I'd let him off the month's rent in return. Oh, I see. So you did, presumably. I probably well did not. Oh. A portrait is a portrait, but rent is rent. There. And yet it still is there proudly on the wall. Good to see Mr. Garrity's Medal of Honor still proudly displayed on the wall. The inscription reads, "For distinguished participation," if you remember. Yes, I remember, because I remember thinking even I might stand a chance of picking up honors like that. I wouldn't know what to look at me now, perhaps, but I had my devil-may-care days, you know? Devil-may-care? What did you get up to? Well, all in the past now, of course, and best left there. Best not? I want to know! Ah yes, those enormous mortar shells. It's quite something seeing them up close, isn't it? Didn't you say something about firing them into the barracks, Mr. Garrity? Ah, you remember, do you? Just a little mishap that occurred during training one day. What are you doing firing on your own men? The captain bellowed at me. I'm not surprised. A little mishap doesn't really do it justice, does it? Well, one has these little incidents when one's a hot-headed young private. Perhaps I should put some evidence that resulted from one of my little mishaps on display. Oh, does the great lawyer like the great detective want to exhibit some trophies of his finest moments? That's your military uniform, isn't it, Mr. Garrity? Well, ceremonial garb, yes. Been hanging on the wall ever since my retirement bash. Not in active service now, you know? Doesn't mean much to me anymore. You could have the old thing if you wanted it. Well, it might suit Lord Van Zeeks, perhaps. An overly ostentatious outfit like this could be just what he needs! Very tactful, Mr. Sato. Very tactful indeed. There's a single apron drying on that enormous cannon-shaped clothes on your sleeve. No, Mr. Naruhodo, that's a real cannon! I knew that. I was just testing you. Piece of history, that is. Seen plenty of action on the battlefield, I can tell you. Now the old girl and I are just enjoying the peace and quiet of retirement together. And of course, she'd come in handy if the enemy decided to launch an attack again. Is there a war going on that I don't know about? There's a good view over the wintry East End from up here. It's an oppressively gray scene. There's really nothing comparable in Japan. And down below Briar Road, partly blanketed in snow. And the pavement where poor Miss Green was struck in the back by that knife. Thinking about it, this is the only room in this building that actually has a window to the outside. Sometimes Great Britain really does seem like a strange land, doesn't it? I suppose all foreign cultures seem strange at first. Imagine how an Englishman would feel on arriving in Japan and seeing people with a Conmedge top knot. Conmedge top knot, I'm very sorry. Well, that's a good point. That's an impressive collection of cakes on that fancy silver cake stand there. I feel sure that it was full of cakes when we first investigated in here as well. Yes, quite right. Haven't touched it since. Haven't done much at all really since it all happened. Time's rather stood still for me, you know. Oh! Time has stood still? Now that's an interesting phrase. I might be able to use that as an excuse when I might be able to use that excuse when I'm next supposed to be tidying the office. You could just tidy up, Mr. Naruhodo. She can read my mind somehow, and I'm not sure how to feel about that. These shelves look like they've been completely torn apart by a wild beast. Reminds me of the Battle of Maywan, don't you know? Ah, the experiences of a seasoned veteran. Enemy had us surrounded on all sides. We really thought we were done for, the whole ballet company. They were taking a real pounding from their cannons, so all we could do was run for our lives. Oh, I thought that story was going in a different direction, actually. Well, the whole experience taught me one thing, I can tell you. When you're done for, you're really done for. That's not what a lawyer who often finds himself under fire wants to hear. Well, that appears to be everything. Is there anything else I could present him? I don't think there's anything else I can present him with. Alright, so I guess I'm gonna try the prison again. Still nothing, and I can't examine anything. Guess he's not here yet. February, Sholmes Suite. So I can examine, but I don't think there's going to be anything of use. Well, here's Iris. I don't think I've seen this part of it before, actually. Iris? That's incredible concentration, that is. I find it quite remarkable how she can focus on so many different things at once. Perhaps I should try drinking more herbal tea. The blend third from the right would be good for you, Runo. Oh, Iris? This girl is destined for great things, I'm sure. Well, Sholmes is in here. Well, I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do now. Maybe if I was in a better mood. Eek! A mouse, Mr. Naruhodo! An enormous mouse! Vermin in a hospital? That doesn't seem the best. But it looks like a very healthy specimen, doesn't it? Oh, it's very plump! I'm not sure we can say that's down to the excellence of this facility, if that's what you're thinking. I genuinely have no idea what to do now. Still nothing. Oh, wait! What's this? Was that there before? What's this? It looks like a part of an envelope, I think. Yes, I think you may be right. Perhaps it was torn off when the letter was opened. Is that significant? Well, it's a little out of place, perhaps, when you look around the room. Yeah, I'm not sure if that was there before. There's no sign of a letter or the rest of the envelope, in fact, is there? Ah, she's right. And yet, here we have the torn off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual. I agree. You better take this just in case. The torn off end of an envelope has been entered into your court record. And now we can proceed. Looks like you're having a good snoop around, eh? Inspector Gregson, back so soon? After I threw that little Japanese fella on the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. In 5 minutes' time, this place will be cordoned off by the yard. Oh, I see. Well, we'd better be leaving then. Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low being back in a cell again so soon. I'm sure we should probably go and... Okay. What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Yeah! Is he like actually alright and the soap just put him out for a bit? Out! Out! Brief candle! Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player. That Stretton frets his honor, his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Now, how soundeth the next part? It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Indeed! Oh, happy day! What? Walking Dead? No, my theory is actually the, yeah, that he's not dead at all. The fellow isn't dead at all? What was that nonsense he was saying, though? I think, yes, it was from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. A soliloquy from Act 5, Scene 5. Shakespeare. So it was that the victim, William Shakespeare, came back to life. If the man had indeed been poisoned, it transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment, and Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime. Whatever that now was. Well, it's a good thing he's not dead at the very least. And who's that guy? I'm pretty sure we've seen him before. Whatever do you think will happen now? Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life. I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, whatever was in that tea he drank, it certainly put him out for a while. But it didn't kill him. And what's really weird is that they're saying, like, oh, it must have been really recent because the body's still warm. So that means they checked the body, but they didn't check for a pulse? Just to be on the safe side? But was it an accident, attempted suicide, or attempted murder? Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. I suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. Oh, what's this? What's that man doing over there? I definitely recognize him. He looks like he's trying to see into Sasaki-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Excuse me, could we have a word? Ah! He just ran off. I feel sure that I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it? I definitely recognize the model. I do too, but I don't remember. Well, we've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we ought to go to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again? A good idea! #21st of February. Local prison cell 9. Look, Mr. Naruhodo! Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now? Look, soon, Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire! Oh, yes? What is he? Tell me, is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess. You're talking about Mr. Sholmes? He actually calls himself Great Detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost. But his diabolical deductions, they're not of this world. They've left me. Ah, cursed! I'm cursed, I tell you. Well, that sort of hurts. Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction too. Yes, moving on. We have some wonderful news. Oh? The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again. Now, in the absolutely worst case, you could be tried up for attempted murder. That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume? It's terrible! Oh? I'm stuck in the cell, suffering for some silly wrong end of the stick! You did it, didn't you? Confess! You're a killer! Why the mustache? Constant questions! I'm sorry to hear that. Ah, that selfish shyster! Make up your mind. Are you dead or alive? If you are going to come back to life, why bother dying? Really, wishy-washy, William! Well, it seems likely that Mr. Shamsphere was never actually dead in the first place. Oh yes, that might make sense, and I'm pleased that he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. I'd be sad to think it was our last. Oh! Oops. Mr. Natsume, does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met with Mr. Shamsphere, didn't you? I'm not saying another word! I demand to have a lawyer present! Who do you think I am? Please, Mr. Natsume, we need to hear your side of the story. Why am I cursed like this? What happened? Can you tell us exactly what happened last night then, Mr. Natsume? There's nothing to tell! But, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, I'm eternally grateful to you for helping me with that accursed case yesterday. The case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back. It's hard to believe that was only yesterday. After the trial was over, I trudged my weary way back to my lowly lodgings. And that evening at 9:30, it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamsphere. So, you did go to the victim's room then? As we feared. I didn't do anything wrong! I'd never been to his room before. It was the first time. Then, what made you decide to go? I bumped into him, and when I arrived back at the house, we got chatting, and it developed into a discussion. But he had to go out, so I bade him farewell. That ties in with what Mr. Gardeep said, that the victim went out and came back after 8. We met again later that evening at around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea I brewed as a gift. So it was you who brought the tea that had clearly been drunk at the scene then. And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, weren't you? Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet! Who was the stronger? It was a delightful battle. Debate. I'm sure. Such a stimulating subject! Shakespeare! And the debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shakespeare's tea? No! Never! Not at all! Team Juliet won! That was me! And when I left his room, the flamboyant fellow was fighting fit! I swear it! Categorically! Cursed existence. Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. That you have a cursed existence. I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now, and in that time, I've learned that it's no place for me. It can be very tiring to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture. There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me. They all laugh! That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room. Which is why I've become a recluse. But even in my room, I find no respite from my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember, and then 1 week ago, I moved into Briar Road. But why? I mean, why did you choose that place? It doesn't seem very comfortable. Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money. It spoke to me. The rent? Obviously, there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed. Cursed? Cursed how? I believe we had this conversation in the first game. The previous occupant, a man who lived there before I took the room, died there. Oh no! He was only a young man, but one morning he was found dead and no one could explain why. Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that. I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books! Books cost money! A horrible history is a small price to pay! When I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the lease to I signed the lease like lightning. Brave or blinkered. But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I realized how horrible the room's history really was. Gosh, was it really so awful? Horrible history. How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened? At first, it was just a feeling. The feeling of beady eyes boring into my back, watching me. Do you think that might have just been your mind playing tricks on you? No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. Sorry. It's been one long nightmare ever since I was given the keys to the place. A nightmare? You've been having bad dreams, you mean? All the souls who have died in that room, I lean over me in my sleep. I try to strangle me! That really is horrible. And now I come to think of it, it happened again last night too. The very same night that Mr. Shakespeare was writhing in agony from the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room. You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible. Yes, you're right. I know it, and that's why. I'm already searching for the next room in the history to call home. I thought it was going back to Japan. I think perhaps you should try to avoid a combination with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history. Ooh, Susasan knows how to make the man listen. Of course. Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse on my room as well.
You mean Mr. Garradeep?
Yes, he knows that if people keep dying there, he'll never be able to rent it out again.
Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near the place.
Ah, perhaps. That may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps and his tenants' movements.
You mean because he's worried about their well-being?
He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. There must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his let rooms. What do you mean he pays so much attention to the gas lamps? Oh dear, no! It's nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsume. Please, forget I said anything. Oh, now you're talking about me behind my back as well.
What's important is that Mr. Shamspear isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come around, and he's able to tell us what happened, we'll be able to get you released.
Yes, please! Oh, I do hope you're right.
Ahem! Excuse me.
Inspector Gregson!
I couldn't help overhearing what you just said. And on that note, I have some good news and some bad news.
Oh.
What do you want to hear first?
Always! Every time! The bad news comes first! When hope is all you have, hold on to it! That's my guiding principle!
Right, well, in that case, the good news it is. Huh? Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way.
Why did you ask me for my preference?
As you might have heard, the victim, Mr. Shamspear, was just unconscious. He's come around now.
Yes, we saw it happen in all its terrifying glory.
He's still being treated by the doctors, but we've managed to get a written statement from him already.
Oh, isn't that wonderful, Mr. Natsume? Oh, thank goodness, it's all over then. I can leave this somber cell.
Sorry, no, that's not on the cards.
What? Why ever not, Inspector?
Mr. Shamspear has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night.
Implicated someone? Oh dear! You don't mean...
I'm sorry to say I do, yes. He's pointed the finger at you, Mr. Natsume.
Ah!
By sweet poison, did he seek to end my life? That wicked, kind of Sasaki Natsume.
No!
I'm sorry, that was the wrong voice. So I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. There'll be one to make the necessary preparations.
No!
And so, once again, Sasaki-san found himself having to take the dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted, or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day, I would represent him in court, and do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him. To be continued! Alright, maybe I'll play this again next week. I'm still kind of salty about the game just deciding, oh no, you're correct, but you're not presenting the information the way we want you to, so you're wrong. I'm still kind of salty about that. But assuming I do play this game again, I will be playing it next week, 7 p.m. Yeah, assuming everything goes well with what I do before these streams. But in between now and then, on Saturday at 2 p.m., I will be playing Mass Effect 3 Legendary Edition, where, well, I suppose we'll be going to Thessia and getting the artifact from there. It just hit me what we're going to be doing in the next Mass Effect stream. Alright, so, yeah, that's everything I can think I have to say. I will see you guys then.